If Grace could bottle a moment and drink from it forever, it would be that night. The night before the truth revealed itself in pixels. It was 11:30 when the power blinked out, leaving the compound in the kind of hush that makes even breathing feel too loud. Grace lay on her back, arms flayed, heat curling around her skin like a jealous lover. Her phone, warm from overuse, balanced on her stomach. It vibrated once, a soft hum, then stillness. At first, she ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. She reached for it, eyes adjusting to the pale blue light. One message, 3 lines. You deserve to know. Ask him about me. Ask him why he never mentioned his fiancée. There was no name, no image, just words, but they sliced through the humid air, through her chest, through the version of her life she thought she was living. That's how it started. But maybe to understand the fall, you need to know how Grace climbed. His name was Nosa, and to Grace, he wasn't just a man. He was ease in human form. The kind of man who didn't knock loudly on the door of your heart. He slipped in when you weren't looking, sat down, and asked how your day was with his voice alone. She met him on a Tuesday, one of those slow afternoons when the sky threatens rain, but doesn't deliver. Grace was buying plantains at the roadside, bartering with a woman who looked like she'd bite her head off if she haggled too low. That one's already ripe-o, a voice said behind her. Buy it today or watch it rot tomorrow. She turned. He was tall, not just in height, but in presence. Clean lines, faint smile, eyes that watched you like they'd seen stories you hadn't told yet. Grace almost didn't reply, but something in his tone, casual and playful, urged a response. You're an expert in plantains now. No, he said, just someone who hates to see food waste. She chuckled, bought the plantains, left, but he was there again the next day. Different shirt, same ease. After a week of run-ins, he asked if she'd sit with him for a drink. She said yes, thinking it was harmless. It never was. He never asked for Grace's whole heart. He simply became the reason she stopped guarding it. Calls in the morning, just to hear how she slept. Surprises that weren't extravagant, but personal, like when he brought her bread from the bakery, she mentioned once in passing. The kind that always ran out before she got there. They built something slow. At least, she thought they did. You always seemed so calm, she told him once, tracing the curve of his wrist where a burn mark lived. He paused, looked at her with a sort of distant affection. That's because I've already lived through storms. Calm is all I can afford now. She didn't press. Looking back, maybe she should have. That night, after the message, she didn't sleep. She didn't cry. She just lay there, staring at her ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster like they held answers. By morning, she had only one question burning in her throat. And Nosa, he answered it without words. He answered it with silence. The morning after the message, the air smelled different. Like betrayal had a scent. Damp, metallic, clinging to everything. Grace got up without knowing what for. She didn't brush her hair. She didn't eat. She only changed into a plain wrapper and blouse, the kind you wear when you don't want to be noticed, but can't afford to disappear. At exactly 10 minutes past 9, Grace called him. Once, twice, no answer. On the third try, she heard the familiar click before his voice came through. Tired, as if she'd woken him. Hello. There it was, the voice she used to love. Now it felt like gravel in her ear. I got a message last night, Grace said. A pause, the kind that stretches too long, that dares you to fill the silence first. What message? She told me to ask you about your fiancé. He didn't speak. No, sir, Grace said, her voice almost cracking. Tell me it's a mistake. Just say something. More silence, but not the warm kind. This one was cold, wet, finally, a sigh. I was going to tell you. Were you? Not like this. You've had over a year. He exhaled again, and in that breath, she heard it. Not guilt, not regret, relief. Are you in love with her? Grace asked. Another beat. Then, softer, I'm supposed to be. That sentence split her in two. One half stood frozen in her living room. The other half remembered every time he held her face like it was the only truth that mattered. Grace wanted to scream, to curse, But instead, she laughed. Just once. A dry, aching laugh. "You bastard," she said. He didn't argue. "I was in love," she whispered, barely hearing herself. "And I was just your little escape. Your other woman." "No, you weren't." "Yes, I was," she said, her voice firmer now. "You just didn't have the courage to say it. There are things people say to fix damage, and then there are things they say to finish what's already broken." "I'm sorry," he offered. It was too late. Grace ended the call, and in the sudden quiet that followed, she realized something cruel. Even silence, when it comes from the right person, can break you. That night, Grace lay awake again, not because she missed him, but because she missed who she thought she was when she was with him. Weeks passed like water slipping through cracked fingers. Not fast, just steady, enough to drown slowly. Grace stopped going to the junction where they first met. She found another woman who sold plantains farther from her street and farther from memories she hadn't agreed to carry. The woman didn't smile much. Grace liked that. Smiling made things feel too close. One evening, while choosing yams under the dim glow of kerosene lamps, she heard a voice behind her. "You always pick the small ones." Grace turned too quickly. Her heart tried to leap before her eyes could confirm. But it wasn't Nosa. It was Kayamika. She lived in the flat 2 floors below Grace's, always tying wrappers that matched her mood and speaking like someone who had never learned to whisper. Her brows lifted as she stepped closer. "Sorry now. I thought you were someone else," Grace mumbled. "I noticed. The way you turned, like you were hoping it was a ghost." Grace gave a small smile, more reflex than warmth. "You look thinner," Kayamika said, not unkindly. "Are you sick?" "No." "Then it's a man." Grace paused. Kayamika didn't. "Men can shrink a woman without touching her," she continued. "You think you're feeding your heart, but you're the one being eaten." "You sound like someone who's been there," Grace said. She shrugged. "Haven't we all?" They walked home together that night, 2 shadows beneath a moon that seemed to mind its own business. For the first time since the message, Grace told someone. Not everything, but enough. "I didn't even know I was the other woman," she said. "He never gave me a reason to doubt. It was like I was inside a dream I didn't know I needed to wake up from." Kayamika didn't speak right away. She reached into her bag, brought out a tin of groundnut, and handed it to Grace like medicine. "You're not stupid," she said. "You're just soft. Men love softness, until it starts asking questions." Grace nodded, chewing quietly. The market air had settled in her clothes. Sweat, smoke, spices, proof of another day survived. Later, she sat on her bed, staring at the only photo she hadn't deleted. Nosa, laughing, eyes squinting in the sun, his hand holding hers like it was made too. Grace wanted to forget him, but memory is not a drawer you can close. It's a room without doors, only mirrors, and sometimes what you see staring back is not a man's face. It's your own, wondering how you didn't see it coming. The message came again. Same number, same silence where a name should have been. "He won't tell you, but I will. Her name is Tamuno. She's real, and she's not just his fiancée. She's his future." Grace stared at the words until they blurred. The room was dim, lit only by the dusty orange light from her bedside lamp. Everything around her felt suddenly too quiet, like the message had sucked the air out of the walls. She didn't reply. But that night, Tamuno became a shadow in her mind. Grace imagined her too often, different every time. Slim and poised, loud and laughing, shy and prayerful. She gave her faces, until Tamuno stopped being a stranger and became a wound. By morning, Grace had made a decision, not out of bitterness, out of something worse, curiosity. "You want to what?" Kayamika's voice was sharp, slicing through the sound of boiling beans behind her. "I just want to see her," Grace said, not quite meeting her eyes. "Just once. Just to know." "To know what? That she's prettier? That she wins?" "It's not about winning. It always is." Kayamika stirred her pot with too much force. "Listen. And if you go looking for the other woman, you'll find yourself comparing shoes in a race you didn't even know you were running." Grace didn't answer. The silence between them stretched, full of unspoken truths. Then Kayamika sighed. "But if you must, do it with your head high." Not like you're begging for pieces of a man who couldn't give you his whole self. Grace waited 2 days before acting. It wasn't hard to find her. Tamino's name, when typed into the search bar, bloomed into photos and tagged memories. Weddings she'd attended, restaurants, a graduation shot, sun on her skin like a spotlight. And there he was, Nosa, standing beside her in one picture, not holding her hand, but close enough for it to mean something. The caption read, "Home isn't always a place." It hit like a blow to the chest. Grace zoomed in on Tamino's smile. It was gentle, unknowing. There was no anger in her face, no suspicion. She didn't know about Grace. That made it worse. Grace closed her phone slowly, like it could burn her. Her throat felt dry. It wasn't heartbreak she felt in that moment. It was shame, not because she loved him, but because she'd let herself become the secret. That night, she sat outside her compound under the mango tree, legs curled beneath her, crickets singing their own version of grief. The gate creaked. Footsteps. Nosa. He didn't speak, just stood there, watching her like he was waiting to be let in. But Grace didn't stand. "You should go," she said without looking at him. "I just wanted to see you. You've seen me. Now go home." He shifted. "This used to be home." "No," she said. "It was just a hiding place. For both of us." And with that, he left. But not before she noticed it, the smallest thing. He didn't walk away slowly like someone who wanted to stay. He walked away like someone who'd already found where he belonged. There was no storm the day Grace decided to stop loving him. No dramatic goodbye. No broken glass. Just light, soft and indifferent, filtering through the slats of her window. Morning arrived without permission, stretching itself across her room like it belonged there more than he ever did. Grace made tea, strong without sugar, the way she used to drink it before he said he liked it sweet. The silence in the room was full but not empty. She moved slowly, not because she was sad, but because she finally had nowhere to rush to. No conversations to rehearse. No messages to wait for. She wasn't angry. Not anymore. Anger, she'd learned, requires energy, and she was done giving him that. Kayamika was seated on the floor of Grace's room when she came out, polishing her nails, her wrapper trailing behind her like a flag. She looked up, smirked. "You look like someone who buried something." "I did," Grace said, sipping her tea. "And I'm not going back to dig it up." She tilted her head, searching Grace's face. "So that's it?" "Yes. No text, no speech, no voice note. No funeral for a man who never died." She chuckled. "Good. You were too quiet lately. It scared me." "I wasn't quiet," Grace said. "I was shedding." Later that day, Grace opened the drawer where she used to keep his things, receipts from restaurants, little notes, the bracelet he gave her. They weren't relics anymore. Just paper. Just metal. She gathered everything and walked to the backyard. No fire this time. No ceremony. She simply let them fall, one by one, into the black bin. No whisper of goodbye. Just the steady thud of moving on. That night, Grace washed her hair and let it dry without twisting it. She slept without music. She didn't dream of him. She didn't think of Tamuno either. She thought about herself, about the girl she used to be before love arrived, like a thief dressed as a friend. Before she mistook attention for commitment. Before she lowered her voice to be heard by someone who was never listening. Weeks later, Grace passed by a bookstore on her way home and stepped in. The air was dry and smelled of old paper. She didn't need anything. She just wanted to be there, among stories that didn't know her, stories that asked for nothing. A man by the shelf looked up. They exchanged a nod. He smiled, then returned to his reading. He didn't ask for her name, and she didn't offer it, because for the first time in a long time, Grace wasn't waiting to be chosen. She was choosing herself.